Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. I'm Erin here from Softtree. With me today is Craig Spears. He is going to be doing the technical part of our presentation. So today really is all about working with attributes. Now, I'm going to define attributes and talk a little bit about them briefly before I pass it over to Craig. But attributes are particularly useful when it comes to reporting, costing, as well as labeling. But before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, per usual, you are muted. That doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. It just means you need to ask questions and engage with us through the Q&A section of your GoToWebinar panel. And of course, like all of our webinars, we are recording this and it'll be available afterwards on our YouTube page. That way you can watch it again and again, should you so choose, or you are able to share it with a colleague. So attributes. Attributes are properties associated with your design. This is particularly relevant to the location module of our RoadEng software. And there are really three types or locations of attributes. Attributes at stations, for example, cross-sectional area, width or height. Between stations, for example, volumes, and at curves. We've got begin curve, end curve, and radius as examples here. In version 8, we've had some significant changes to the way we work with attributes. Up until now, attributes have been able to be used for reporting and labeling, and now moving forward, we've got a whole bunch of additional and expanded capabilities, in particular with regards to customizable attributes. So now we can have new material reporting functions that are really useful for costing. For example, the cost of ballast materials and culvert cost calculations. Craig is going to be going through a few examples today of how to work with attributes, including their reporting, their labeling, and some of these customizable attribute costing functions. So all of this, plus more, is included in version 8. And we've got some additional upcoming webinars where you can check out more of the new features that are coming up. We're going to be going through template components on October 27th, new GPS functionality on November the 17th, and optimization and cost reduction on December the 1st. You can get more info about what other features are included in RoadEng 8 by going to softtree.com/v8. And we've got a couple examples here. What's included: a new user interface, better tools for working with LiDAR, multiple horizontal alignments, so you can have more than one road in your design file, which is fantastic if you're working on any type of project where you've got road networks or intersecting roads. A totally redone multi-plot report builder, field improvements, including GPS integration, and for those of you in the resources sectors, we've got integration with the TruePulse 360, laser rangefinder, and a whole lot more. So with that, that's enough of the preamble from myself. I'm going to pass it over to Craig.
Thanks, Erin. I'll just switch my screen on here. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about attributes and a few other concepts that are related to attribute reporting. And at the same time, I'm going to introduce a few new features that we have coming in version 8. I'm going to be doing this demonstration in our beta version 8, just because it's coming out very soon, and I think in the office here we're working pretty much exclusively in version 8. Many of these features are available in version 7, but there are some new and improved features in 8. So the project I picked to do this presentation is one we've had kicking around here for a while. It came from a university. She was a university in New Zealand, and it's about a 2-kilometer road project, rural road project. And yeah, the actual contents of the project aren't so relevant to this presentation. I'm not going to really be doing any set piece of work. I'm going to be talking about mostly concepts and techniques instead of actually showing you a workflow. So just for your interest, this is about a 2-kilometer project. So attributes, what are attributes? It's a kind of a generic word. What we're talking about is the fields that are reported in each one of the windows. For instance, the most common place to look at attributes is in our data window. If you go into the options and click on columns, you'll see all the available attributes. And similarly, in the other windows, you can configure the windows to report attributes, display them as labels, and so on. Before I talk about attributes, though, I want to go and discuss another concept which continually comes up, especially with new users. It's something that I think deserves a bit of attention. For those who've been using RoadEng a while, this may be old hat, but for new users, I think it's a concept that you have to learn right away. And that is that in RoadEng, there's a concept of reporting points, or what do we call them? Point types. And what that is all about is behind the scenes in RoadEng, there's a lot of cross-sections being calculated. I've got a plan window here. Let's just turn on the reporting points for this plan window, and you can see them as tick marks. If I zoom in a bit here, you can see these little horizontal tick marks. Those are reporting points, and there's a whole bunch of them that are created automatically. Here's a complete list of them. You can also get at the reporting points through setup, location setup, alignment, report point properties. And here is a complete list of all the types of points we have. And each type of point may cause a cross-section or a series of cross-sections to be calculated. For instance, if you're working with a P-line survey, you may automatically want to create cross-sections at your survey hub locations. Template override points, those are places where you've changed the template. I've got here set an automatic cross-section will be calculated whenever I have that turned on. And two of the ones that are often used are auto interval points and auto interval points 2. You can set them to whatever intervals you want, and that will actually generate automatically fixed interval cross-section points, which you can use for reporting and so on. So the concept is that there is, behind the scenes, lots of cross-sections being calculated. And oftentimes someone will say to me in a support call, well, I've got all these strange sections. Where are they coming from? So I just turn on all the reporting points. And you see here there's stations at all these different positions along the alignment reporting information. They say, I don't want that. I only want to report stuff at fixed intervals. Well, the way to do that in the data window and in other places is to turn off this all point types, go into point types here and select just the points that you want to display. So I go with, I think it was 100 meter before. If I want to get a report with stationing at 100 meters, there you go. Now we're back to 100 meters stationing. So that comes up a lot, and it comes up with people printing cross sections and all this. It is this underlying concept of RoadEng. In general, the more cross sections you have, the more accurate your volume calculations will be. And the downside of too many cross sections is that your recalculate time will start to get longer and longer as you, when I do a recalculate here, it's going to recalculate all those cross sections, so that time will increase. But other than that, other than the time it takes to calculate them, the more the merrier. You don't have to report them all. Having them there is good for accuracy reasons. So there's a concept that I think is related to attributes, comes up all the time. So let's get back to what we started out on, which is attributes. Let's look at the, well, first of all, in version 8, we have reorganized the attributes quite a bit. Before, we had different attributes in different windows, and there wasn't really any commonality between them. We've reorganized that, so all our attributes are common to all the windows where appropriate. And we've also added some new attributes, which I think you'll find quite useful for doing different things. So let's have a look at some of the attributes that I've got here in the data window. Back to my list. This is a pretty comprehensive list because the data window can report all types of attributes. I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute, but each of these categories, if you sift through them, you'll find there's descriptions of what they are. Many people who are familiar with RoadEng are used to this way of getting at the attributes. Essentially, when we reorganized the attributes in version 8, we came up with 3 types of attributes that are sort of broad classification of types of attributes, and that is attributes that are at a station, attributes that are between a station, and curve attributes. So, for instance, let's look at my data window here, and I'll click on a station, and notice that I've got L station in the first column, cut depth, stripping volume, cut volume, fill volume, clearing area. Notice that the line going through this here, the line goes straight through cut depth and L station, and that's because those 2 attributes are at station attributes. They apply exactly at station 300, whereas the volume attributes fall in between. So if I had here, I've got some cut volume going on, so that cut volume applies between the current station 300 and the previous station 200. So it's a station attribute. Yeah, oftentimes people will ask us for, in my section window, I want to show volumes in my section window. Well, it's not so easy, actually. We've tried to get this to work, but it sort of goes against common sense. The section window is reporting information that's at the section. It's not reporting information to the next section. In fact, the section window doesn't even know what the next section is because you can choose different reporting intervals. So getting the section window to report volumes is just not, it's just kind of orthogonal to what common sense would dictate. So if you look at the attributes that are involved in the section window and you go through the list, you'll find that the list has been thinned out to attributes that only apply at a cross-section. And yeah. The other classification we had for attributes is curves, curve information. And before version 8, the only way to get textual form of curve information out was to either send it out in land XML or put it onto your multiplot sheet. With version 8, we've added a new function, which is a curve table. I'll just create one of those. I'll create a new data window. And I will go into the data window options. And here I've got a new feature. So the traditional way of doing it was just the alignment. We now can report horizontal curve information, in which case the information in the selection list here is related to horizontal curves. And similarly, we could have done the vertical curves the same way. So we have now 2 windows that deal with curve information, and yeah, that's, I think, a great new feature. Has been asked for many times. The other thing, I will go back to the original window here that has the @station, @toStation stuff in it. If I copy this window to the clipboard and I paste it into Excel, which I think a lot of people do, and just come here and paste, there we go, and you'll notice that it actually rolled the between stations upwards. So it no longer, obviously in Excel, it doesn't have the same ability to show you what's in between. You just have to know that these columns actually apply to the previous, or sorry, to the next station in this case. So these are all between station columns. Okay, that's kind of a broad classification of attributes. Another thing that we have available, and again, this is probably not new, but it's been improved quite a bit, is the ability in either plan or profile. Actually, it's only plan or profile now, not cross-section, but the ability to set labels and create user-defined labels. So I'll just go into my profile window options. I'll have a look at the labels here. And I have this category called user-defined labels. And I can go in and turn on the options for that. I can give it a name, whatever you want. Call it stationing. And then I can add attributes to that station. And here's where I can get at my attribute list. And again, it's going to be @station attributes for user-defined labels. So I can make a label. I actually had a interesting call yesterday related to P-line station, and this actually will solve that problem. So I can add several attributes here, say index and, oh, I don't know, what have we got? L-line elevation, centerline elevation. Let's throw that in there. So I've got index and centerline elevation, and I've got this property turned on, display attribute description. Let's just have a look at what that does. Stationing. And I want to format this label in some reasonable way. I think I'm going to, excuse me, actually I'll choose this format. I'll copy it, and I'm going to paste it onto my new stationing label. So I get some sort of format. I'm not sure how this is going to look. It may take a bit of fiddling to get a pretty label, but now I've got this set up basically. It's turned on, and whoa, I'm getting a lot of labels. And that's, let's discuss why I'm getting that. But at each label, I'll just zoom in here, you're getting an index. In this case, it's a P-line index. We don't have a P-line, so it's blank. And a centerline elevation, which is a valid centerline elevation. So I want to control the spacing of this label. So it's just another example of point type selection. So profile options, labels. Let's go in here and look at the point selection that we've got for this type of label. And here I've got all these points turned on. Probably don't want to do that. And let's just turn this label so that we only get these labels appearing at 20-meter intervals. And I'm going to take the index out. It's totally useless here. So I'll just take that out and I'll leave centerline elevation. The other thing I'm going to do is notice in the label it's got the centerline elevation as a piece of text. I don't want to put that. So I'm just going to instead put here ELE. Oops. I'm going to edit this label and I'm going to put in here ELEV and press OK. And I'm going to turn this off. See what we get. And now we're getting ELEV equals, and there you can see I've created my own label with a little bit of text on the side. So attributes will tie into labels. They will also tie into things like your sub-windows, profile sub-windows. They really, they thread right through the software. So the next thing I want to quickly talk about is a new functionality in version 8 to actually create your own attributes, underlying attributes. So we created user-defined labels, but they worked from a list of attributes. What I want to do is I want to create a new attribute that is a function of other attributes that exist. So I can do that in version 8. I go into Module Setup. We have a new tab here called Attributes. And here's a list of all the attributes. Sorry, I think these are only, no they're not. They're both at station and between station attributes, but they don't include curve attributes, so you can't build functions from curve attributes. But down here, we have a category called user-defined. Just have a look at that. I've created a couple before I went on the air here. So I've created a new category by just clicking the add function, and it's called slope class. It's a new attribute, and its title is going to be called slope class, and I've given it a description. So slopes between 0 and 10 are flat, 10 to 30 rolling, mountain 30 to 50, and steep greater than 50. And as a function, I set this up, and I can show you how you do that. But it's using this variable here in an expression to calculate a value that will give me a slope class. There is help on this expression evaluator. I don't want to go too far into it, but it's very similar to expression evaluators that you've seen in Excel and things like that. So you can create a variable that is a function of other variables. You can have multipliers. You can add things to it, and so on. So that variable there. Let's just get out. Let's go in here, and let's add that variable to our data window. It's now in the list under user-defined. And let's add, actually no, let's not add it here. Let's go to another window that's more appropriate. Data 2. There we go. I've already done it. Okay. So I added that slope class variable, and you can see here it's designating a simple integer based on the class of slope. Its range of values. So, you know, if you were costing a road by slope class, you could simply take that slope class variable and multiply it by some dollars, and you would have dollars per length for that class of steepness. I know some people do sort of very preliminary road costing just simply using the side slope class. Another example I wanted to quickly show you with the attribute definitions is the another example on culverts. So I've got user-defined here. I've created a culvert user-defined item, and what this is doing is it's saying if the culvert diameter is 500, then multiply by 10. And if it's equal to 1,000, multiply by 20 and add the two together. So what that will do is it should give me a 10 where I've got a 500-meter culvert and a 20 where I've got 1,000. Just have to find the right window here because I did look at that. Well, we can't find it. Let's make one up. So I'll just add that variable. And I'll go into user-defined. Oh, columns. I need some points. That's what I've done. Okay, properties and culvert insertion points. There we go. there. So as I said, if you've got a culvert with a diameter 500, it's calculated 10, and a culvert with 1,000 millimeter diameter, it's going to come up with 20. So if I multiplied this cost by the length, I could have different costing for different culverts. I think that should be obvious. But anyway, you get the idea. You can create these user-defined items. The other thing that the user-defined attributes gives you is the ability to change the names of these columns. I know that's been kind of a sore point. These columns have traditionally been hard-coded, so now with the new attributes, you can actually create new columns. So let me just try and do that. So I'm going to add a new, I'll call it My Station. And the heading is going to be My Station. And this value, it's at station, it's numeric, its units are length, and I'm going to simply put the station in there. So I've now got a new attribute which is called My Station, and it's reporting station. So effectively I've just changed the name of the column, which some people will find useful. You get these things set up the way you want to do. So columns here, I go into user defined, and I can add My Station. And now I have My Station. It's exactly the same as station, except it's got your name on it, or however you want to call it, your station. So there's some flexibility. Obviously, you can save all this stuff. You can save it as a default file, and this will be your default file from there forward. So a little more flexibility. I thought this was going to be a fast presentation. I see I'm running quickly out of time. The other thing I wanted to show you and talk about is a feature related to attributes, which is a classification, I guess, is attributes. If we go back, oh, sorry, wrong window. Go to this window, data options, columns. Down here in the list, there's a couple of entries that you've probably seen if you're a RoadEng user, template codes and template parameters. There's a new one here called volumes OptiHaul. These two categories are populated basically as you change your design. So as you change your cross-section, put a new cross-section in it, the template codes that are available in this list may change. And what these points are, template codes, very useful. On the cross-section there is identifiable points, and if you just hover over a point on the cross-section, you'll see that's down at the bottom of the hover tip. It says DIR. That's a point code on the template, ditch inside right. For this particular template, other templates might not have it. There's ditch outside right. There's RER, and you notice some of them have multiple point codes. That's okay. So depending on your template, you can get these different point codes. So what you can do is you can go in and actually report information about those point codes. You can report the offset from centerline, you can report the elevation, and so on. So you can pick up different features in the cross-section and report them in the data window here. Maybe you need that information for slope staking and so on. I don't think time will let me go through that process, but it's a very useful one. The other information in there that changes, it's a dynamic attribute, is template parameters. So these things are parameters that are set in the template, and they are things that you've put in as a user, and you can report them out. And again, this list will change depending on what templates you've got assigned and so on. So all this information is reportable. the last thing I wanted to talk about is a new and significantly improved reporting system that we've put in for material types. In days gone by, if you had surfacing volume, you would get a report that said SRF1 volume, and it would be pretty generic, and you'd actually have to break it out into different materials. You'd have to change templates and things like that. So it's kind of generic. We've fixed that up, and we've allowed subgrade materials above subgrade to be included as specific ground types. So this material here, just hover over it, you see it says fill SRF1, shows me the area. So now I can go in, and for that material I can actually assign it to a ground type. So I'll go into, where do I go here? Assign parameter by range. I go to fill types, and then other materials. This fill assignment is for subgrade materials. That's generally what most people are interested in, but you can now also assign materials above subgrade a ground type. We'll call this gravel. So now that material is going to get all the properties that gravel has, and those properties include, let's just look at that, what do they include? Gravel, expansion, compaction properties, and costs. That's really been a driving force. Now you can get cost information out of materials above subgrade, and probably won't go too much farther in that direction now, but all these attributes and so on are going to be built into cost functions that can be optimized, and really that's kind of a driving force for a lot of this work that we've done on attributes. Okay, I think I'm sort of wrapped up on the main items I wanted to cover. Is there any questions?
And just a reminder, if you have a question, you can use your GoToWebinar question panel. You should be able to just type them in right there, and we will get them and respond to them. Seems like a decently quiet group today. Yes, well, we'll give it another second or two here. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Craig for taking the time to go through what is a relatively untraditional webinar topic of ours, and wanted to thank you all for attending. So we do have a few questions coming in. The first question, is there cross-compatibility with RoadEng 7 and 8? And this is for 8 files to be read back in RoadEng 7.
The answer to that is yes, they can be. What we've done in RoadEng 8 is we have changed the file formats. The RoadEng 7 had a whole bunch of, if you're an existing user, you know that for a design file you could have 4 or 5 files that sort of were attached to that design. We've consolidated all those files. And now, if you send someone a file, you have less chance of missing a part of the file and all those sort of problems. So that was the rationale. We consolidated everything. So you have a couple of options. You can, if you want to give someone a file and they've got an older format, you just go Save As, and you can choose an older file format. And this is DSNX is our new format. DSN is the old format. So I, in fact, did save this project in DSN format. If you do happen to get a file and you've got an old version, really what the DSNX format is it's a zipped file, very similar to what Microsoft Word does with their docx files. They just zip stuff together, and if you rename it to a zip file and unzip it, you'll get the old format files. So yes, it's backward, and it's backward compatible, and it's certainly forward compatible.
Excellent. So unless there's any other questions, we will adjourn. So thank you everyone again for coming, and I hope you all have a lovely Friday and a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Today's topic might have been a bit sort of theoretical, but it is a lot of stuff that we do get on a regular basis, people asking about or they're confused about. So hopefully I clarified a few things, but I may not have. So anyway, thanks, everyone.